ask you specific question that to make sure that for you to be able to fit in that particular role, there are some jobs that there are some particular skills that you have that the applicant tracking system will be able to sift so that it can be able to take you to the next stage. Now, after the pre-screening, what the organization has is what we call a long list. From this long list, you find that many times people go through a process of making sure that the list has been reduced to the people who are most responsive to the job advertisement that they have, and also a number that is reasonable for them to take time to assess them further, to check whether or not they actually fit the roles that we have. Now, this process of further assessment, among them is interviews, and that's what we are going to really speak about today. So interviews can take different formats. They can be done video interviews, face-to-face interviews, phone interviews, among other things. Now, once you have been interviewed and the organization says, fine, this person meets 100% of what we're looking for, you will see that the organization will go forward and check your background, do your reference checks. And once you have agreed, there will be now the negotiation of you to start to see whether or not the offer they have given works for you, the contracting period, and then we go into the pre-boarding, and then finally the onboarding stage. So in the short of it, we can easily say that selection is a process of choosing a qualified candidate for a specific role who can successfully deliver valuable contributions to the organization. As you noted in my earlier speak when I was talking about interviews, I did say that interviews are among the methods that you use to further assess a candidate. So what other methods do exist other than interviews? There are quite a number of methods that exist. There is people who are able to do test centers where you actually come into a place and do particular jobs that mirror the organization within that role. There is others that prefer to actually go in and give you presentations that you're able to make. Maybe they give you an actual assignment to write maybe a board paper. You can be able to even write just a simple presentation that the people that are assessing you could be able to see that then you are able to meet and deliver the objectives of the role that they have on offer. So here I'm speaking mainly to the employers that are on the line. How do you select the method that is most right for you? What is it that you should do to make sure that when you pick a method where you say, fine, mine is a test center, mine is an interview, if you're going to pick that method, how do you know that that method would work very well for you? The first thing to consider is the role itself. If you have looked at the role and broken it down into the key skills, ability, and knowledge that you have that is required for that role, when you have gone in to appreciate the kind of persona that should fill that role that will work very well with your culture, you have looked in depth and seen how best you can be able to detect those things through the particular processes that you are thinking about, you will start to be more inclined to one particular method of assessment. Now, once you have understood what your role needs, the kind of persona, how you can be able to detect the things that you're looking for, you have to be realistic and consider the type of resources that you have available. Resources doesn't necessarily have to be money. It can also be the people's time and also the organizational exposure that you're giving when you're doing interviews and or selection through other different types of methods. Once you know that the resources for you are available and it is actually leading you towards a particular method, you go back and assess how valid is the method that you're looking at. So from the questions that you've been answering yourself, from the role itself to the available resources, looking at how you're able to select that this is how I'll be able to detect this particular issue, this is how I'll be able to detect the other issue, you will notice that you have a method that can actually easily tell you that this is the person that you have been searching for. So that is when you go forward and validate the method that you have chosen for this area of selection. Now let's say that with all these questions, with the understanding of the selection process, the understanding of how to choose the best method for you, you have zeroed in on interviews. So let's ask ourselves, what opportunities do interviews present? So number one, interviews are two-faced. There is opportunities that interviews present for an organization and opportunities that interviews present for a candidate. Let's take a quick deep dive into the organization. What does an interview give? What opportunities do an interview give you? So one thing is that you'll be able to gauge a candidate's experience and their ability to perform in the role. It's a very good opportunity to make sure that you utilize that time to gauge the experience and their ability to perform. Now, when you're talking to different candidates, you have to remember as an employer, you're actually selling yourself to that candidate as much as that candidate is selling themselves to you. So an employer has a very brilliant opportunity during interviews to explain the employee value proposition. Employee value proposition is a whole topic that we can discuss for days, but essentially we can just say, employee value proposition entails the kind of job that you're giving to this person, how that job will be able to further them in their own career growth and their personal desires, how you're going to compensate them for the roles, including money and in kind, how the culture of the organization is going to enable them to remain to be a well employee throughout the time, and also how you'll be able to do things here and there to ensure that other than those other things that you have given them, you're actually caring for them as a human being and ensuring that they are continuously remaining engaged throughout the work process. This is a very good opportunity for employers to use to just explain what their employee value proposition is. Now, once you have explained the employee value proposition, you have to notice that this is your time to shed good light on you as an employee or as an employer. You have to go there and actually say, okay, this is who I am. I know you don't know me very well, but this is exactly who I am. This is what I can be able to do for you. This is exactly how we can participate together to make sure that you have a little bit of affinity or even complete affinity for me as an employer. Now, the candidate, what does the interview give you as a candidate? Number one, this is your opportunity to understand even further the details of the job responsibility. You know, you can be able to have read this on the job advertisements, or maybe they sent you the actual full brief during your interview process, but there could be some things that are not necessarily clear that you can be able to use the opportunity of an interview to just gauge and appreciate better what these responsibilities and the details of those responsibilities are for that job. Now, this is the opportunity that you have to ask the organization questions about itself and its employee value proposition that they're willing to give to you. Candidates, it's very important to make sure that you utilize this particular opportunity of an interview to sell yourself properly to an employer. And while you're being interviewed, you can actually take a minute to decide whether you shall be willing to decline or to take up the role that has been offered. I have taken a minute to just take a time to explain to you how the process of interviewing works and the process of selection of interviewing works. Now, I just need to take a minute to check with our colleagues. Josephine, are you on the call? Great. Allow me to just take a minute to launch one poll for us so that we can just ask ourselves this very, very lovely question. Have you ever gone for an interview and you have been moved from place to place and you're wondering, is this really something that I want to go through? So we will be giving you, say, 2 to 3 seconds. Sorry, minutes. My sincere apologies. I'll be giving you 2 minutes to be able to just answer for us this question. Have you ever opted out of a selection process before it concluded? The poll is launching right now. I invite you, ladies and gentlemen, to just take a vote for this 1 minute. Have you ever opted out of a selection process before it concluded? Ladies and gentlemen, I see that most of us have not opted ever before to leave a selection process. I know that there are very many reasons why you would want to leave a process or want to continue with a process, but I just want to to ask Nelly to talk to us about how employers can help you to decide whether or not you're going to leave or to continue with a process. Nelly, we're looking up to you to be able to talk to us about the type of interviews available. Nelly?
Perfect. Thank you very much, Wendy, and I hope everyone has kind of gotten an understanding of why when going for an interview, it's not just you who is being interviewed, but you're also interviewing the organization that you're speaking to. At the end of the day, you need to be able to understand whether they're the right ones for you or not. Even as you as an employer, you're figuring out whether the candidate that you're interviewing is a good fit for your organization. Now, there are different types of interviews that you'll go through. I know if I was to ask everyone here who has gone for an interview, 1 or 2 times they'll say they've been asked a question like, tell me a bit about yourself, or tell me a bit about a time when you did X and Y, or give me an example of a situation in which you were able to show your leadership skills and all those different things. So we can classify that into 3 main ways. Now, one of the things that you'll notice if you've gone for interviews or if you've done interviews before is they're either structured or non-structured interviews. But then the key main approaches that we go through are 3 of them. So I'll start with the first one, which is behavioral interview types. So what behavioral essentially means is I'm trying to understand whether you can be able to describe past performance or even behavior that demonstrates whether you're suitable for the role that I'm hiring for. Now, if you're an employer, what you're trying to see is, has this person been in a situation like what we are, what you're going to be able to put them through, and what kind of behavior did they kind of bring out? This is mainly a question that comes out, especially if you're a junior or mid-level person who is being interviewed for such kind of a role. So give an example, if you are a graduate trainee, one of the things that will happen is either you'll be taken through a personality test, can be classified as a behavioral interview type of approach, where we want to see what kind of attributes or abilities are you able to bring out. If I'm interviewing salespeople, I'll be able to ask them to kind of give me examples of times when they were able to really hit their sales and how they went about that. So that's behavioral interview types of questions. The second one is around competency. So competency, I am trying to evaluate for your skill level. I'm trying to see whether you have the skills that are needed for you to be able to perform well in this specific job that I'm interviewing you for, or whether you're able to bring out those skills as you talk about yourself. Now, this mainly comes up especially for more of the senior mid-level position. It can also apply for even all the junior roles as well. But what will happen here is you realize that you'll be asked to actually demonstrate a specific skill and how you went about it. So this is where the STAR approach, and I hope if I talk about the STAR approach, all of you know what that means. So that's the competency interview approach. The third one is situational. So situational is where you were able to use a skill or bring out your experience for you to be able to have demonstrated whether this role is a fit for you. What happens here is, it's where you actually be asked, tell me about a time where you were able to manage a conflict if you're in customer service, for example. Tell me about a time where you were able to lead a team and how you went about that. This is where you are able to bring that out correctly. So again, to clarify, the 3 interview approaches that you'll find are 1, behavioral, the second one is competency, and the third one is situational. Now, what does this mean for you as an employer when you interviewing people? What does it mean in terms of what you need to be bringing out? So we can go to the next slide. Okay, perfect. So one of the things that we have noticed is the fact that for employers, or if you've been part of an interview panel before, you realize that it becomes very hard for you to be able to find or evaluate whether candidate is a fit for you if you do not prepare well. So one of the things that we are trying to ensure that you do is that you as an employer, you're able to prepare pretty well for that. So there is a before, a during, and then after for that session. Now, when you come up with a role, the first thing that you need to be able to define is, what does success look like for this specific role? What do I need for this person to be able to come and do for my organization for them to be successful? The second thing is be able to rank the critical key success areas for that specific role. The third thing is where you need to be able to prepare the questions that will determine whether the person or the candidate possesses those critical success areas that you're looking at. The third one is, the fourth one is you need to frame your questions well. The other thing is, again, it's going to be multiple people involved in the recruitment process, whether it's from the HR to the hiring manager, to the CEO, depending on how many interview stages you have in your organization. You need to be able to have a planning meeting with at least the first 2 or 3 people that are going to be involved in the process. The reason for this is to ensure that every single person is aware and aligned on what it is that we are interviewing for. There's nothing as bad as going for an interview and then you actually find the candidate knows a lot more about the role than you do. There's nothing bad about, there's nothing good about you showing up for an interview and you have no idea what role you're interviewing for. So having this planning meeting is really, really important for you to make sure that you're able to do this. Then the other thing that you need to be able to look out for is, do not ask anything that are legal questions. Sorry, there's someone on my background who is trying to distract me. So make sure that you watch out for legal issues. What this means is essentially where you do not ask the wrong kinds of questions to candidates. And we can talk about what these kind of questions mean. And if you're keeping track of what's happening now, there's so many questions that you cannot be able to ask during interviews. For example, in the US, it's very, very legal to ask people what they're currently earning and what they're currently earning, and even asking for proof of their pay slips for that. So make sure that you have a planning session to understand this is what we're going to be interviewing for every single candidate that we are talking to. Now, when you go to during, so we have done our shortlist. We've identified that these people have the key success areas that we're looking at, and then defined that these people are a good fit for this specific role. Had a planning session. We know Nelly's taking interview 1, which is the HR screen. Then we're going to have a panel interview, which is going to be focusing on this. So now we're calling candidates in for interviews. So during, you need to have a good control of the interview when the candidates are essentially coming in. The third thing is you need to encourage communication. Right, so make sure that you and the candidates and the panelists are essentially having a very good conversation. The third thing is please take notes. There's nothing wrong, there's nothing good about you going in for an interview and you're trying to interview candidates and you can't even remember what they said, because then again, you're not going to just be interviewing one person, you're going to be interviewing multiple people for that specific role. So you need to be able to take notes. Remember, we have our key success areas, and that's where we're asking the questions along. So I need to check if one of the success areas that I'm looking at is ability of the person to be able to do sales targets. If it's a sales role, then I'll be asking questions around that specific area, and I'll be taking notes to show how they were actually able to go about that. Then the other one is ask follow-up questions. If something is not clear for you in terms of what the candidate has said, you need to be able to follow up with questions. So for you to be able to be successful in understanding whether this candidate is a fit for you or not, asking follow-up questions and allowing them to also add as many points and examples as possible is important for you. The other thing that you need to keep in mind during the interview is, again, I've already talked about it, so you allow candidates to be able to ask the questions if anything is not clear, and also if you're already done with the interview, before you dismiss them, please make sure that they understand their role, they understand you as an organization and what you're looking for. The second final thing is be prepared to answer questions. If you have been part of an interview panel and a candidate has asked you, a common question that comes up is, what are the success factors that will be used to measure me in terms of performance for this specific role when I join in? If you're not able to answer that question, please do not be part of that interview panel, because one, that shows you did not prepare well, you did not frame the questions that you needed to ask, you do not even understand the critical or the key success areas for that role for you to be part of an interview panel. So be prepared to answer questions in terms of the role itself, in terms of the organization, as well as any process of the interview process. So if I'm going to ask you, what is the next stage in this interview? You need to be able to tell me it's going to be a culture analysis interview, or it's going to be a personality interview. Now, the final thing is make sure you close the interview by thanking the candidate for sparing that time to come and talk to you. It's not just magic that a candidate will spend their money, would spend their time to come and talk to you. So I know most of the times as employers, we come from a point of, hey, it's me who has the role and I'm the one who's going, it's me who has the opportunity, I'm giving it to you. So at times, some employers tend to be really rude to candidates. But one of the things for you to have a very good employer brand out here, you need to be able to close the interview in such a way that makes the candidate feel, hey, I did not waste my time. I did not spend my money coming in for this interview or even my internet connection joining in virtually for this interview for nothing. So that's during. Now we are done with the interview we are done with the interview process for this. Now we go to what do you do after. What you do after is you and the rest of the people who are part of the panelists, you essentially assess the presentation that the different candidates were able to give to you. And then you need to make sure that you hold a post-interview meeting with all the different people who were involved in the process for alignment. The reason that why you do this is, one, to make sure that there are no biases in terms of a candidate would come in, they're well-spoken, but then the content is not really there in terms of what it is that you're looking for the role. And you like the person just because of the fact that they had this one element. And you're going to talk about the biases that we usually have during interview and how to avoid them. Now, the reason why, again, a post-interview or a post-meeting to debrief is important is so that then you align in terms of who between the 20 or the 10 candidates we saw for this role are we going to progress to the next stage, and being able to compare notes. So if all of you are aligned in terms of candidate 1, who is Nelly, and candidate 2, who is Wendy, we're able to show or really bring out all the key success areas that we're looking at, you're going to be progressing with them. It's also knowing who is the person who is going to be able to reach out to them and discuss the next steps. Now, when you do that, the next thing that you need to be able to do is, if you've gone through all your different interview stages, before you give an offer, please make sure that you always do reference checks for the top 2 to 3 candidates that you considering for the role. The reason for this is, again, I can come in as a candidate, I can come into the interview 100% prepared. I know how to answer all the questions that you're looking at. I know how to read a JD and understand the key success areas that you're looking at. So it's going to be pretty easy for me to be able to say, you know what, this is what you're looking for, and I'm going to be able to answer that. Thing is, as you make an offer to the candidate, make sure, one, you call them, show that you're excited to have them joining you, show that you're very impressed about them, and you've decided to extend the offer to them. Of course, this is after the reference check. And then make sure to communicate. Please always give feedback to candidates who have spared their time to come interview with you for that specific role, so that then they know, I did not make it for this role, and this was the reason why. But then again, I'll actually be willing to apply for that role next. I can see someone who is asking a question here, which is, what's the perfect answer? Tell me a bit about yourself question. Now here, I'll say this, I won't give you what the perfect answer should be in terms of like, this is what you need to say, but 3 areas that you need to be able to cover is, 1, understand that the employer already has your CV with them. So they have gone through it, they kind of already know who you are. So it's reaffirming why you're the best fit for that specific role. Through, of course, talking about your name, the education that you've gone through, and then what are some of the achievements that are in line with this specific role, and the fact that you're interested to work with them. You can also include things around hobbies. Hopefully you've done your research about the organization, so you'll be able to know these are the values that they have, this is their mission statement. So being able to talk about how you yourself align to their values, how you align to their vision and mission will be really, really important for you to be able to answer that question wholeheartedly. I know Bernadetta would have a perfect answer in terms of how you're able to, what a perfect answer you can give for that specific question. So we go to the next thing, which is, we're talking to, Wendy, if you can go to the next one. Perfect. So remember, one of the things that we talked about is making sure that you have a debriefing session, or essentially creating a way. So this is not for an employer. You are interviewing people, so you need to be able to create a way in which you're able to track this, you together with the rest of the panelists. And you here, I'm mainly talking to the HR people in this call, because you're the ones who really manage the recruitment process in different businesses. So it's, 1, being able to create a scorecard. What a scorecard really allows you to be able to do is, we came up with a JD. this JD is allowing us to be able to find the right candidate. But for us to find the right candidate, we have to put in processes that allow us to be able to do that. So the scorecard really make sure that you have a proper way of being able to go through this. So once you create the scorecard, 3 things that you need to keep in mind is, 1, set measurements and requirements as a team. So you sit down, remember where we were talking before. So you sit down with the different people who are going to be part of the process. And this mainly would involve the HR plus the hiring manager and any other person who might be involved in the process, to really look through how do we, so this is our key success area. So how do we measure for that? How do we evaluate what the person needs to be able to say or talk about? And then have a clear scoring system that assesses the key success areas. So are we going to give qualitative or quantitative? Qualitative, are we going to be saying, we need this person to be able to speak about sales strategy? Again, still talking about a sales role. So we need the person to be able to speak about sales strategy. They need to be able to talk about the time that they manage a team for this specific key success area and all that. Or then, are we going to be giving a score? Am I going to be giving a score between 1 to 10? Is it 1 to 5? And what does 1 mean? What does 2 mean? What does 3 mean? 4 and 5? So then it's pretty clear for every single person. So by the time where you're combining all the different points or scores, it's very easy for you to be able to know, I gave this person a 5 because they were able to point out all the different things that we were looking for that key success area. And then always leave room for comments. The reason for this is your scorecard needs to be able to have 3 points. This is a key success area. This is my score. And this is the comment. So the comment is where now, as part of the panel, I'm taking my notes and pointing out what the person said that was able to make me evaluate them as a 1, a 2, or a 5. Now, so we've talked about the scorecard content, which is, 1, it needs to have a consistent rating system. If you choose to go with qualitative, it needs to be that way throughout. So you're not going to change it and decide in the 3rd interview stage, no, I'm going to change it to a different rating. So make sure it's very consistent. The 3rd thing is, make sure that you're asking specific questions that assess key success areas. And these questions need to be the same question that you ask every single other candidate that comes in for that role. So if we say we're hiring for salespeople, we are trying to understand it's a sales manager, I'm trying to understand their leadership experience. And the question that I go with is the question that I'm going with is a behavioral kind of question. And I'm going to be asking them to tell me about a time where they were able to lead a team through difficult times where they were not able to hit their target. So it's going to be the same question that I'm going to ask candidate 1 all the way to candidate 10. Then be able to define critical specific areas to that specific position. So for you not to have a whole scorecard that has 20 things, and then you're going to spend one candidate interviewing them for 2 hours because you're trying to evaluate for every single thing, it's knowing what are the 4 or 5. I would really recommend that we all go with either 5 or 6 key competency areas that really allows you to be able to dig deep and have a proper interaction with the candidate. Then the comments and the total scores need to be able to tally, and someone then needs to be able to check the different scores from the different interview panelists and then combine them to one score that really either gives you a percentage or gives you, again, if you went with the rating, gives you a 5, a 6, and then that's why you're able to know this is the person that came first, this is the second that came, the person that came second. Why this is important is at times the candidates who will genuinely want to understand why they did not make it through an interview process. So for you to be able to tell them, hey, this is what you said, this is what you could have probably said better, because you have the scoring for it as well. Then the pitfalls to avoid is one where it's just you asking the candidates and you're very stunned. You don't even want them to talk back at you. So you're restricting engagement. For you to really get honest reactions, for you to get really to dig deeper into what a candidate is able to do for your organization, is to allow for that engagement. I always try and make my interviews as interactive as possible, so then the candidate doesn't come out of that feeling as if they were being interrogated. If you've been arrested before by a cop, you know there's nothing good about being interrogated. So you want interviews to be relaxed. You want interviews to be very calm. You want interviews to come out as if, one, I want you in my organization. Tell me why you need to come to join our organization. And the second thing to avoid is non-standard sheets, or this is for the score sheets. If you're going to choose a method, stick to a method. We have talked about that. So where you're mixing things up just because you feel this hasn't worked for us from the beginning, it's going to really, one, either make you pick the wrong candidate because you're changing things to fit different candidates, or one, not allow, or second, not allow you to find the best person for that role, while in the beginning you already had them as part of your shortlist. And then the third thing is avoid complicated ratings. It's pretty simple for you. It's pretty easy for you to be able to say, this is 1, 2, 3, this is what we're going to be using, or we're going to just be adding comments and you're going to be evaluating that through the process. Where you're having complicated rating processes, even for you, you're going to just decide, you know what, I've gone through this process, let me just pick the person that I thought impressed me. This is where biases then come in, whether you decide to pick the person who was a very good communicator versus the person who really, really struggled, even though they were able to bring out all the points, but it took them a while to adjust to the interview process. So that's essentially how you need to be able to go through a process, an interview. I'm going to take time to answer one more question, which is, let's see. So from Eric says, does body language of the interviewer towards the candidate send the wrong message to a candidate, which may convince the candidate that the interviewer likes them and they're likely to be selected, hence they end up being not even contacted? Secondly, should interviewers be aware of their body language during the interview, such as nodding their head, which may mean they agree to what the candidate is saying and send the wrong message? Now, what I will answer to this is yes. Body language, of course, is important for you to be able to bring out during an interview. The reason for this is you do not want to be like this as an interviewer and make the candidate feel so out of place because, hey, this is an interrogation. You've said you need to be able to remove such restrictions. You also don't need to be distracted in such a way that you're looking left and right and not really looking at the candidate. So having one body language that says, I am inviting you, please be able to answer as many questions as possible. One, allows the candidate to be very, very calm, and it helps them also be able to bring out the best for themselves. Is nodding a wrong thing? I would say no. I mean, if you agree with the candidate, show them that you agree. That actually, if you've been part of a process, it helps you know that as you're nodding, you're listening to me, you're actually impressed with what I'm saying. So I'll even want to bring it out better. So having those interactions with candidates is not really, really wrong at all. And even for you as a candidate, you need to be able to look at the body language of the person that the person who is interviewing. Yes.
Alrighty, thank you very much, Nelly, for a very deep presentation on how to prepare yourself as an employer during an interview process. There are very many things that go into preparation of an interview as an employer that Nelly has really spoken about, and in the slides that we'll share the recording of this particular conversation and also the industry report that we shall publish on this conversation will actually help us to be able to continuously remember as employers what we need to do to be able to meet the requirements of our interviewees during an interview. There is a question here that came from an anonymous attendee. Thank you very much. What does one look for in an interview that shows that this would be an employer of choice? Thing number one is that an employer needs to be able to do several things to be able to show you that they are actually indeed an employer that you should invest your time in the way they are asking you to invest their time in. This is a detail that Bernadette is actually going to speak about at length in the next few minutes. And we are going to launch a second poll. We ask you to take a minute to just answer for us this question before Bernadette comes in and speaks to us through the question that I have just read on the chat. So the question we have today is, do you research an organization before accepting an interview invitation? Do you research an organization before accepting an interview invitation? Please make your vote for your answer so that you can be able to usher in Bernadette to speak to candidates, to know what it is they're supposed to do, who they're supposed to what they're supposed to look out for, and what other types of telltale signs are important for you to be able to know that you're dealing with an employer that is worth your investment. So far, it's actually quite interesting. We are seeing participants are always researching their organizations. This is actually very, very interesting. 15 seconds to the close of the poll. Kindly send in your response. I like the honesty in the 2% that have actually stated that it has never crossed their mind. This is actually something that is very good when you're doing meetings with yourself, you know, understanding the things you are supposed to do. I'm currently going to just end this poll. Quite a number of us always research the organizations that before we send in our application. Allow me to usher in Bernadette to just speak to you as a candidate to appreciate what should you do as you're preparing for an interview, during an interview, after the interview, and what pitfalls you can avoid both as an employer and as an employee. Welcome, Bernadette.
Thank you very much, Wendy. So job seekers, congratulations, you've been called for an interview. So as the slide shows, that is the candidate guide. What do you do before the interview day and after? And I'll give you my experience both from having recruited for many years and also for myself being a job seeker. Number one, as Wendy has mentioned about researching the company they're going to work for. I have a varied viewpoint about that because I found out that when they sit down for an interview, they really have not taken time to internalize information about that organization. And I've seen a lot of people using just templates, you know, a template that you use as a job, you know, you're applying for a job, use a template, and you even use the same template for the cover letter for different jobs, which is a very crucial mistake that they do. And then you don't even change the job title up there. You send to XYZ company the same cover letter you sent to ABC company. I already remember that. I like to be, I'm told I'm brutally honest. Your CV will go to the dustbin. Your CV will go to the dustbin, job seekers. Please don't do that. It's become a bad habit. Take time, go and print out. Don't photocopy your CV. Go and print it out in a cyber. Do a concise cover letter that describes your achievements, that describes your capabilities, and that describes how you fit into that role and how you fit into that company. Company culture has become a big thing. I had someone mention about hobbies. There are people who've gotten into jobs, not because of their papers, but because something about them came out so strongly that they were a good fit for the company culture. So make sure that you really, not just saying, I'm going to apply in KQ and they fly planes and they do this and that. Do you know their value proposition? Do you know what they want to be? The next 5 years, where are they heading to? What is their strategy? You know, if you're going for a managerial job, what is their strategy for the next 5 years? What challenges are they going through? How do you fit into that? You know, how do you fit into the company culture? How do you fit in their mission, their vision? That is what it means to analyze and research a company. Number two, analyze the job description. Each job description is different. It can be for customer service, but it will be different. It will require you to have different skills. You might find out there's something that comes out very strongly about that particular job that they require you to do. Do you think you have the capability to be able to do that job? So again, I'm saying don't use templates because I say in Kenya there are jobs, but you use templates, and that's why you're not getting those interviews and you're not getting those jobs because you're using the same thing for company ABC to XYZ. So analyze the job description, look out for the skills that they need, look out for the key areas that you'll be asked, you know, what will be your KPIs. Go also and analyze what are the KPIs of a customer service executive. Analyze online. Those are the ones that will come out in the interview. They may not be there in the job description. And then number two, prepare a list of accomplishments that are related to the JD. Now, what are your accomplishments? When I have done coaching and I have asked somebody, what was the impact in the last job that you had? They all don't have an answer. They go gaga or some incoherent answer. You have to know offhand, you have to have sat down and appreciated yourself. What did you accomplish in the last company? Because that shows the company what you are capable of doing in their company. And if you can't remember, or you didn't have any accomplishments in the last job or company, then when you move into their company, we fail because we go to Google questions, and Google is not going to prepare you for a question like this. What are your accomplishments? What are your strengths? And strengths are not, again, please don't Google them. Be honest. I'm always go for honesty. What are your strengths? And what are your weaknesses? Yeah. Being a perfectionist is an international thing that is being used in Kenya. Everybody happens to be a perfectionist. All of us cannot have the same weakness. You have to go back and look at yourself critically. I always say, do yourself an assessment test, an online personality test, and find out. It will tell you what your weaknesses are and what your strengths are. So I know Research Templar we've talked about, brush up on interview etiquette, how are you going to go there dressed, language also, how do you treat or how do you greet the person that you meet even at the reception? Don't be casual about it. Someone said, walk with an attitude, walk like you know where you're going to. On the interview day, make sure that you're there on time. When I say be there on time, I mean be seated in the company waiting room 30 minutes before time. Don't go there working with 30 minutes from security. There's some security, there's some buildings with very high security. You have to go to 3 security checks and you're not the only one going there. So make sure that you're there seated at the waiting room 30 minutes before time. Always make sure you take a glass of water. I know maybe you're using public transport, so go to the bathroom. Maybe you can even carry a brush. I know for ladies, we have big bags. So you'll carry your hairbrush or something else. Just make sure that you look the part. When you're dressing, also make sure it is decent. For ladies, make sure it's something that is not above the knee. For gentlemen, I know there are these new trousers going on, and that is not what you're going to wear, something that is body hugging. Wear a suit and a tie. Also for ladies, if you can't wear a suit, unless otherwise advised. And for ladies, for shoes, wear something that has a little bit of a heel. It makes you look confident and makes you look professional. But don't wear flat shoes to an interview. Listen carefully to what you're being asked in the interview. Don't be quick to jump with answers. Use the SARA method where you detail what your achievements are, as we discussed before. What were the lessons learned? If you had gone through a problem or solved the problem, what did you learn about it, about yourself, and also how you should be able to look at that issue before. How you can be able to tackle that issue at another time. And also look for signs of body language of the person interviewing you. You know when you're going wrong when suddenly the body language changes. So you need to step up and do something different. Maybe what the answer you're giving them, or even the way you're seated, you're supposed to be seated up straight. And then after, think through the offers made on spot. I know there are not so many jobs in Kenya, but especially if this goes for very people who are very, maybe the middle management or upper management, look at offers that are made on the spot. Do you want to negotiate your salary at that point? I would not go for that. Tell them to give you time. Another thing is remain reachable. We've had people where we're even looking for them on social media because their phones are off or they are mteja or they cannot be reached for the next like 1 week, someone cannot be reached. Kindly, if you're looking for a job, put your phone on early in the morning, and then prepare for a follow-up interview. Go back, have a meeting with yourself, check where you did not go right, check what you could have answered better, what you could have done better, because you never know, they may call you for a follow-up interview. And contact the organization should you not hear from them after the given timeline, but don't harass them with emails. I've seen that happening before, or calling them through the company's lines and looking for them. Just send a polite email, just asking for the update on the interview that was held with you. Okay, there's a slide. I think the next slide will be held by, maybe I hand over to Wendy because of the next slide.
Thank you very much, Bernadette. There are some jumps that have been just shared there. You actually notice that, especially the thing of being reachable, you have to be reachable as a candidate when you're sending in your applications. Also, you need to not follow up too aggressively. Yeah, you know, there is a way you send 25 emails in 2 days and they told you they'll be in touch with you in the next 2 weeks. Please make sure that you put that in consideration as you are working through the things that you're working through as you wait for a conclusion on the interview. So the candidate has come in for the interview, the employer has prepared well, you've finished interviewing, you have assessed yourself, and now we are asking the question, yeah, what pitfalls do employers should try as much as possible to avoid as they are running through their interview process? Number one, I call it the self-fulfilling prophecy effect. You know, when you've read like a fantastic CV, you've seen it ticks every box, and when the person has come for the interview, you are just trying to fulfill that prophecy that this was the person. You're not being very objective on how you're actually asking questions, seeing how they are performing against the questions that they have asked, reading them, appreciating what they are bringing to the table. Simply because you've read something, you resonated with it, and you're just wishing to tick the box and say, this is it. This is the person that I'm looking for. Please, employers, be very, very conscious of that as you're interviewing. The stereotyping effect, this is something that very many employers take for granted. When somebody comes into the office, they are in dreadlocks, they have a tattoo or two, and you have seen it. Maybe they have, is it the nose ring? And sometimes there are some people who
As you wait for Wendy to be back, maybe I can continue on that. I won't share my screen, but then just continuing on the stereotypes. So Wendy talked about the self-fulfilling prophecy and then the stereotyping, where it's just because someone came in and they addressed a particular way, which again does not align with what you believe people should be, or someone comes in looking a different way in which you don't believe people should be in, and you just dismiss that candidate just because of that specific element that you've seen from them. It really, limits you from finding the right candidates, because you already have, this is my ideal kind of a person. This is how human beings should be able to be. So if someone doesn't fit your definition of a human being, then you'll not be able to consider them for that specific role. Wendy, you can continue. Wendy, are you with us? Oh, you're on mute.
My apologies. I fell off and I think KPLC decided to visit me today. I sincerely apologize for that. Now, once you have decided to be to listen instead of stereotyping, the other thing when you're listening is to make sure do not put a halo on somebody, do not put a horn on somebody because of something that you have just seen happening. For instance, when you see that you're interviewing Wandy, and yesterday she was giving this particular conversation and you're just like, Wandy's an angel, she did everything perfect. And now you're not listening to Wandy, you're just remembering what Wandy said yesterday and remembering everything that resonated with you, and you fail completely to see the things that Wandy is presenting as the things that might actually not impact your business in the way that you're looking for. The other effect is somebody did something really bad. Even this happens especially with the internal candidates. So you have this internal candidate who has come in to do an interview, and you remember that yesterday they actually had this horrible conflict with their manager, and all you can see is that horrible conflict. You're not able to put yourself aside and put that situation aside and effectively assess that particular candidate. The other effect is your contrast effect. When somebody is not like you, when somebody has come and they are different from what you thought they would be, you start looking at them differently. This is something, again, as an employer, you need to be very, very conscious about when you're walking through interviews. The similar to me effect, this happens a lot, especially when you meet somebody who is more like you. They come in dressed in something that you admire, probably their presentation, their posture is something that you really would like to do and you admire. And you're just thinking, this person is so very me, so I would rather just go with this person. You fail again to see everything that they're presenting that is not right. You fail to see how they are not responding to the job offers and the key skills and abilities that you have, that you're looking for. Now, when you go to the person that you like, there is times you like a person so much that you can't be able to articulate their, what is it called? Their differences in the particular presentation that they are making. So ladies, this happens a lot when, for instance, this charming gentleman shows up and all you can see is the charm. Ladies and gentlemen, sometimes that happens when this very, very agreeable lady shows up, and all you can wonder is, oh my gosh, this person looks very, very amazing. Sometimes you could actually start interviewing somebody and you notice that this person is, what is it called? This person is, they call it the Monday crush. I keep honestly saying what the word is, and you keep wondering, should I not listen to this person objectively? So please note, if you're going to interview somebody and you know very well this is a person that you have a particular liking to, you need to be able to put yourself in check, because at the end of the day, people are human beings and they have human reactions. So it is allowed for you to recognize it in good time and make sure that you're working well towards the recognitions that you have made. Bernadette, talk to us more about how a candidate should be able to be aware and not fall into some of these pitfalls that are very much avoidable.
Okay, I'll go ahead, Wandy. And before that, I'd like to answer the question from Jokin Dongo. She asked, is trouser suit okay for ladies? Again, I say research the company. For me, I would first go visit the company just as a visitor and see how they dress there. But there's a place for a trouser suit for a lady. If you're looking for a power job, you have to go there in a power suit, preferably with a trouser. But first, find out about their company culture. Okay, I'll go on with the slide. So common pitfalls, which I've seen. And I said, when I've recruited for many years, is number one, someone is totally unprepared. Someone enters the room and they're expecting the Google questions, and we don't use the Google questions. And someone starts perspiring and gets very jittery. Someone breaks down. And there's one time we had to give someone a glass of water and something, to have her sit in a room to just calm down, because they were totally unprepared. They were prepared for Google questions. So we've given you a guide on how to prepare yourself. Please do. If you need mock interviews, I hold them sometimes. So you can get in touch with me, we can do them, just to let you see what will happen, you know, in so to say, a courtroom, because that's what lawyers do with their clients. They go and do mock, you know, they do mock questions to make sure that the client is ready for court. And then number two, lack of interview etiquette. I've seen someone swing with a chair, you know, and put his head, you know, at the back, you know, at the back part of the whatever, and he's trying to answer questions. And again, the other thing would be sit up straight, you know, put everything that you had in your hand on the left-hand side. Have a notebook on the right-hand side with a pen and write down, you know, as they ask you questions, also feel free to write down some pointers. And also, I'd like to talk more about the sling bags. We have man bags, we have sling bags, we have these computer bags that are being carried around. Kindly, those are a security risk in most buildings right now. Do not carry them. Already you have failed the interview. I've had watchmen calling me and asking me, is this guy coming to your office? And I mean, are you aware he's coming to your office? Reason? Because of that bag. Please carry a folder. Leave the bag at home for your other things that you'd want to do. I've worked in a high-risk building, and all the bags had to be left with the watchman. So kindly, gentlemen, those things are not for the interviews, they're for your other things when you're doing out there. And please don't carry a man bag, carry a folder. Lack of communication during the process. I said, don't listen to answer, listen, think through that question and then answer it. Yeah. And then don't tell the, if the employer is repeating the question, don't say, as I'd said before, you know, or don't take a casual approach. This is not your buddy in the hood. This is your employer. So put your best foot forward, you know. Then take an approach that is overly casual. As I said before, remember even how you treat the receptionist, how you treat the watchman has a big impact. I know receptionists who have sabotaged people from getting jobs because the manager will come and ask, how did that guy behave when they came here? And they say, you did not give her respect. You did not treat her in a way that is okay. Or you kept walking up and down the office, you know, looking at stuff and looking at things and asking her questions. Some maybe are personal, you know, condescending. So everybody you meet in that building can make or break you. Taking in too many cliches, kindly don't use cliches that you use in the estate, use on social media, use proper English. And for proper English, I advise you read a book. A proper book will give you good English, yeah? A resume dishonesty, I know I do CV revamps. One thing I don't do is resume dishonesty because it's going to fail you and it's going to dent my credibility. So if you've not done something, you've not done it. Just have a precise, concise CV that says what you have done. I've also taken people aboard, people who've been honest with me. So I'm not saying that everybody out there is waiting for you to outshine the other. No, I don't think employers think that way. The other things we look at, except just what you've written in the CV. And then asking inappropriate questions. Don't ask inappropriate questions. There are questions that you can ask your employer. Remember, this could be your employer. So don't ask inappropriate questions. You know, I've had people ask things like, you know, if you are in my position, how would you answer that question? Or, you know, things that are not, and I say this is, don't take the hood behavior or the social media behavior there, because I've seen there's a lot of negativity on social media. And for this, I say, you only speak what is in your mind. Go and watch videos like Law of Attraction, you know, go and listen to motivation videos and watch motivation videos on YouTube. Don't do a lot of social media. It's going to affect how you think and how you talk to others. Think positively because you've read something or listened to something positive. So many people spend their time on social media use that time to build yourself, because it's going to come out in an interview. You can easily tell, since when you enter the room, the first 3 seconds, whether this person is someone I want to deal with. Does he have etiquette? Does he have manners? Will he go through this thing? So remember, communication is 70%. Go there dressed well, smelling right, you know, don't over cologne yourself. Please shave. If it's for gentlemen, please cut the nails. There's nothing inappropriate as long nails or that one long nail that is there. People have failed interviews because of that. Wear the right shoes. I put up a post yesterday about socks. Make sure that the naked part of your leg is not being seen when you sat down. And again, I say, don't wear, for both ladies and gentlemen, please don't wear body hugging things. Those are for the club. Keep them in the club, in your hood, but don't wear them to the interview. And also, don't wear anything that is showing your cleavage, ladies. It sends a wrong message. I've seen people wearing those things and it doesn't give a very good message. And also wear something, ladies, where you sit down, you're not trying to cover, you keep on pulling the skirt up because it's actually showing you your body. Make sure that when you wear something and you sit down on a seat, do practice at home. How will I be comfortable with this in an interview? Because sometimes you don't have a table in the interview and the panel is facing you and wondering, how will this person work here? Overly aggressive follow-up, of course, we've discussed that with Wendy before, so I won't go through that. But I've had employers really, you know, complain about this, even attacking them on social media, like even attacking recruiters on social media. I've seen that happening on LinkedIn. You told us this job came up, you're not giving us follow-up. Please go to his inbox and do that. Let us not lose our manners. Manners is, for me, I think I'm passionate about that. Someone who, I would rather give someone who's not very qualified for the job, but has top-notch manners and etiquette. Yeah.
Yes, thank you very much, Bernadette, for that very lively explanation on the kind of pitfalls that a candidate should be able to avoid. I'm actually just going to answer a few questions that are currently on our chat, and I note that we had one person that had raised their hand. Just give us a few minutes, we'll be able to get back to you. There's a question from an anonymous attendee that says, what does one look out for in an interview that should show that this would be an employer of choice? I'd actually say that some of the things that we have been discussing actually demonstrate this, but I would also like to use that particular question to answer it with another question that has been asked here on the chat, which is actually very, very interesting, where somebody wondered, why would an employer give you a letter without stating the terms of the job? They tell you we will state the starting date and the term of the contract when you report. Red flags like those are actually very, very common, because an employer that is prepared for a position already knows that, yes, this is what we are going to do. This is how long we're going to do it to this person. Are we offering a term contract? Are we offering an open-ended contract? When they don't know these things, you actually should worry. Another question that has been asked here is, what could be the reason why employers would take potential candidates through 5 interviews, then fail to call them for a job? This is actually something that very many employers, and I hope the employers that are in this call are listening and paying good attention to. You shouldn't interview somebody for more than 3 times. For me, 3 is the maximum. Go through the selection process properly. If you have assessed this person and you have wanted to take them to the next position of the interviews, if you have taken time to make sure that you understand what you're grading, how you're grading, and how to determine what you're grading, the first interview should be able to cover this very well. If there is going to be a follow-up interview, let the follow-up interview just be the things that clarifying the things that fell short in your particular grading method. Don't start using the second interview as beginning the interview process all over again. Excuse me. You can appreciate that in an interview, sometimes you might have people that are not available to be able to sit with you in that particular interview panel. Let's say, for instance, they are going to do interviews with the internal members of the organization, and they have a board presentation that they should make. This allows you to go for 3, maximum 4. 5 is a no-no, and it's actually a red flag for people. You need to be able to know that an employer that is prepared will not need to assess you those many times, especially when you come in for the next interview. My apologies, I needed a sip of water. When you come in for the next interview, you actually notice that they are repeating the other interview and the other interview. That's a complete red flag. It shows you that that's an employer that is actually not prepared for you, and they are not willing to settle as internally for themselves to be able to give you a good experience. So if they can't give you a good experience during the interview, what makes you think that they would give you a good experience during your job with them? Now, when you're looking further, after we've seen the processes that come, we have seen what the selection method is, we have agreed on how to pick out the right method for you, we've seen the opportunities that are presented within an interview, we've gone further and talked to employers and helped them to prepare, how to assess, and which kind of pitfalls that they should not fall for. We've looked into the employees, how they should prepare themselves, what kind of pitfalls they should not fall for. So right now we are going to have a quick conversation on now, what happens after all these things have happened? You've gone through the process, you've been elected. What are the etiquettes of accepting and rejecting a job offer? On accepting, excuse me, please say thank you. Even if you knew from the beginning that you are a stellar candidate, you are God's gift to everybody by gracing them, you know, they should be graced by your presence in that interview panel, just say thank you. It's common courtesy, it's the expected etiquette when you are accepting a job offer. Make sure, excuse me, that your job offer is in writing. Do not, candidates, do not enter any negotiations with your current employer to leave your job when your new prospective employer has not completed your offer in full writing and you are actually holding a credible offer that if things go wrong, you can actually have redress around that particular area. It doesn't matter how good the employer is, how big their brand is, how awesome their name is, let the thing be in writing. When you have accepted an offer and you are interviewing with 10 other companies, for instance, it is very good etiquette to tell them, hey, I am pulling out of this particular interview because I have accepted another job offer. It's very good to actually do that so that you don't make people keep depending on you and yet you have already moved on. So what happened if they are offering you something and you want to decline it? For the purposes of etiquette, make sure that you do it in good time. Decline in good time. Don't take 2 months to decline an offer. Don't go MIA on the candidate, on the employer. Just decline it politely and promptly. Do it via telephone, you know, give them a call. They've been intimate with you. You've been having conversation. Don't just drop an email. Make a phone call to the recruitment manager to say, I informed you earlier that I was going through interviews. I have decided to accept another offer, so I will be declining this offer. Thank you for the opportunity. Write them back in an email. That works. Or you can just say, thank you for the offer that you've given me, but currently I am not in a position to accept it. I thank you for the time that you have given me, blah, blah, and you continue. Do not go and start making elaborate lies about why you are declining an offer. Do not go into the too much detail. Just make a short, precise decline via phone, then write it in email. And then always remember to thank them for the opportunity that they have given you. When you're looking at how now I have accepted an offer, I have done everything right, and now what happens? Employers, please note that the pre-boarding process is a complete jam for you to introduce an employee into your company. What are some of the pre-boarding processes that you just must have? If you're not doing it, ladies and gentlemen, I hope you will start doing it really quick. Number one, send a personalized welcome note to the employee after they have accepted your offer. Tell them, thank you for accepting our offer. We are looking forward to having you. It is very important. It keeps the employee engaged from day one before the actual onboarding begins. Make sure that before the employee comes to your organization, you have announced the arrival of their new hire via email. So let's say that my joining date is on the 25th. Please, a week before that, put it out. Like on the 20th, say, we are welcoming so-and-so, they're joining us in this position. This is the type of experience they're bringing us to the role. This is what they like. This is what they do on their free time, and they're looking forward to coming in. So this is, these are their emails. You can write them, etc. It is very important to do that. Request the new hire to complete the pre-employment forms before they actually join. It's normally very overwhelming on day one if you bombard somebody with 62 forms to fill. If you can be able to give them to give this employee to fill them in piecemeal, so that by the time they are coming into day one, they are actually enjoying their experience about being in the organization. If you are an employer that prefers that an employee completes their employee profiles online, or maybe even there is forms that they need to use to do this, make sure that they do this before the day one of joining the organization. Now, send little emails. You can send little videos about the organization, little write-ups about the organizations that will make this employee start to have a very intimate relationship with you even before they join. It's very important for engagement when somebody becomes consciously aware of the things that they're supposed to do before they come into the organization. For the love of God, employers, this one I'm going to repeat very firmly, underline twice, make sure you're doing it. Please set up your employee on all the IT systems that they're supposed to have. If they require a laptop, get it for them. If their desk is not prepared, prepare it for them. There is nothing half as bad as an employee joining on day one and they don't have a laptop. They are not connected to any HR system or IT system that is working in the organization. Some of them don't even have a desk. This is where you're getting your employee to be disengaged from the beginning. And lastly, make sure that you have sent this employee a schedule of what they're going to do on day one, preferably 1 week. But if things are really bad, day one should be very clear to the employee. So ladies and gentlemen, we're going to just take a few minutes again, because we have 7 minutes on the clock, to just answer some of the questions that we have here. So we have one question from Vincent Musia. It says, it is very critical to sell yourself, and your achievements will be among your best tools to do that. How do you highlight your achievements in a way that doesn't rub off the wrong way, that's bragging, but you also do understand but you also do not undersell yourself? I will take that one. Would standard score sheets cause interviewers to try and put people in a box? Is it possible to box things up? That I will ask Nelly to please take that up. Another anonymous person has sent in a question that says, what could be the reason as to why an organization would give you, no, this one we have answered, would give you an offer letter that doesn't have start dates? That one we've answered. Shed some light on salary negotiations during an interview. That one I would put it up to Bernadette. Now let me go back to Vincent's question. When we were making this presentation, we actually told you that there is a method called the SARA method, where you display your achievements by putting the achievement in context of the situation, the actions that you took towards that situation, the results that you achieved in that situation, and how you applied those results. That's a very standard method for you to be able to use to enable yourself to put out your achievements. I also like to mention at this point, Vincent and every other person who's wondering about this question, there is nothing wrong with taking pride in what it is that you have done and what it is that you have accomplished. It's actually something to have pride over. So do not overthink it and start saying, I want to dim my light so that everybody here can feel comfortable. As long as you're answering the question in a respectful way, ensuring that your body language is fine, the language that you're actually using is fine, your posture during answering questions is good, and the structure that you have taken, that the situation, action, results, and application is on point, there is no need why you should worry. So Nelly, tell us a little bit more about the scores and how putting a standardized score sheet might actually box in people. That comes from Noreen.
Okay, perfect. So the reason why standardized scorecards are really important, again, is they help you remove the biasness that comes in from either yourself or even the rest of the organization. What scorecards allow you to do is really take care of the bottom line, that this is what we need this person to come in to do. And it avoids you from asking questions that are not relevant for the job. Again, it helps you remove or limit yourself from asking questions that might have a legal effect on your organization. Does it always end up being that you box things up? I would say no. It's very easy for you to be able to say, during stage one, we're going to be focusing on this specific skill, and these are the questions that we're going to be asking, and this is going to be the score. During stage 2 of the interview, we're going to be asking about this. This is the questions that we're going to be asking, and this is how we are going to be scoring it. So what a standardized scoring sheet allows you to do is define of each stage, you're going to be asking this and this and this. It's not just about we're going to be asking the same questions for every single stage. Maybe that's something I should clarify. A scoring sheet is not where you put same questions for every stage and just seeing how the candidate scores, and I'm going to score for it because it's the second interview, the first person is going to score for it. No, it's where during stage one, so the questions we're going to ask, this is what we're evaluating, we are done with those. Stage two, we're going to be looking for something different. These are the questions we're going to ask. This is how we're going to score for it. We're done with that to move to the next thing. You can divide your questions in such a way that you start with the technical capabilities. Stage two would be the values and culture alignment. And then the last one would be any other nitty-gritties that you want to be able to evaluate. I hope, Noreen, that answers your question. I would like to take another one, which is from Eric, where Eric is saying, is it wrong to ask about the strategic plan of an organization, whether they can, where they can sit in a competitive way and feel they cannot share it with you? I would say if it's a first interview, really avoid from asking the strategic plan of an organization. To be honest, I am not sure of any organization that will be able to share with you what their strategic plan is, just because of one, it's the business plan. This is how we're going to conquer the market. This is how we're going to get into the market. So if I'm giving you the plan and I'm giving the plan to every single interview or candidate that is coming in, it's really not going to work for our advantage. So the only time that you can ask this question is if you're going in for a pretty senior role and your role is going to be heavily involved in doing the kind of pushing the strategic direction of the business. So I'd say at all points, please try and avoid it. Ask questions that are really relevant to the job a lot more than the strategic plan of the business. Yep.
All right, so we go to Bernadette speaking to us about salary negotiations.
Okay, when it comes to salary negotiations, you can use this outline I'll give you. First, you have to know the market value. What's a going rate in the market? That is one. Number two, what is your value in the market? You know, some of us are maybe are sought out because we become experts in what we do. So you don't expect the employer to give you less than, you know, what you're quoting. And a lot of people don't do research. Look around, you'll always find somebody who will give you an index of what that job is paying per se right now in the market. And also look at what you have achieved, the companies that you have worked for. Look at your, again, I said achievements, what companies you've worked for. If you're working, maybe you've worked for, you know, a big brand and you're going again to a bigger brand, you don't expect them to pay you the same. They're supposed to pay you more because now you've really learned on the job where you are and now you're going to a bigger job. So number one, I say always a key point for me there is know your personal value. A lot of us have not sat down to understand and appreciate ourselves. I don't know whether it's a culture that people really don't sit down to appreciate themselves. And when someone asked about their achievements, I say, shout it from the mountain. That is what is going to get you your job. If you're good at what you do, please just write it. You're good at what you are. And that will also help with salary negotiations. Another thing, delay taking up the offer, no matter how tempting at the first, you know, when it's offered at the table. That is usually the minimum offer and it's a trap. So tell them, I need time to go home and think about this, and then I will get back to you. There's no harm in asking, what is the budget for this job? But it doesn't mean that you have to go with their budget. They'll always put for you a lower budget. And also, when it comes to salary negotiation, again, how much of your personal resources are going to be used in that job? Let's say you're going for a business development job. Are they going to give you facilitation to see clients, to travel, you know, to have meetings, to do all this? You have to accept the salary itself together with the whole package, everything else that they're giving you. That's why you need to go home and sit down and be able to see your value, to be able to see how much support you need from them, accept the salary. And are you going to like relocate like from where you're living because the place is very far? You know, you have to look at all those things before you can be able to make accept their offer. But don't take the offer at the table. Never do that, you know. Always go home and tell them to give you 2 or 3 days to give you an answer. And it also gives you the power. I always say, don't give all your power out. You know, you lose confidence and self-esteem when you just take something that's on the table. You look desperate, sorry to say. Don't take a desperate offer from an employer. Let them respect you. Let them know that you have value. And when you're thinking the 2 days that you're thinking, they're actually going to think that you're negotiating with somebody else. So when you come back with your own offer, you have a better, you're better placed to negotiate and get a better offer, probably even more than their budget for that position, because of how you have handled yourself. You know, that is part of personal branding.
Yes, thank you very much, Bernadette, for a very, very deep answer. It has actually answered quite a number of questions that were on the question and answer session that I have actually moved to the answered area. Please take time to go through the answered area to see some of the questions that are there that have been answered. I know we are 2 minutes past the clock, so I'll just request for 2 more minutes of your time so that I can quickly respond to the open questions that we have and ask that you quickly just, fill up a survey for us that will help us to serve you better next time. So I have a question from Joy Kibara. How does one correctly answer the question on why you want to leave your previous employer? For me, I've always said, go on, it's called selective honesty. Just say that I got to, I am saturated for growth with my current employer, and this is a good opportunity for me to grow. This is an opportunity for me to gain a varied experience in the things that I am looking for, or this is a bigger challenge than what I am used to, and I feel like I'm up for the challenge. That's a very simple answer that didn't necessarily go into the drama that was happening between you and your previous employer. Please just consider that one as you had drama and you sorted it out, not to bring it to the new employer. The other question we have, dear Wendy, how about if they don't give you feedback on how you performed during the interview? Is this usually the case? Unfortunately, this happens more than we'd actually like to acknowledge. And if this happens to you, I'd like to say, Hillary, dust it off. Don't let it stay with you and start wondering and overthinking and stagnating yourself in that position. Just make sure you dust it off, move forward, and have the positive outlook and keep sharpening your skills as you prepare to be always interview ready. Do you have a clear career plan for an interviewer to take you seriously? Because sometimes we are placed in areas and where it is not our career path. So the recruiter assumes you've been jumping around a lot. Again, this is a thing about intention. If you're intentional in the things that you'll be doing, you will not be having this problem that you're having. Do not apply for jobs randomly simply because you want to have a job. I've always said, for me, do not let a job dictate your career. So this is also another whole topic that we can discuss, but don't take jobs just because you want to take a job. This is what will be causing you to be in this problem. Also, I think from this particular question, I feel like there is more questions on why you have changed jobs more oftenly. And on this particular issues, just be honest, I left this job because at this point, maybe the company wound up, there were some places that were not that were declared, for instance, they ended in the business. Go ahead and tell them, for instance, at this point, I was looking for a better challenge. This was a contract that ended. Try to be selectively honest, but do not put yourself in a situation where we see like you have not understood and or appreciated the value that you got from the experience that you were in. How do you know how much the role is offering in advance? The quickest way to know this is if your employer actually puts that out. And if they don't, you can actually gauge it from the experience levels that have been required, from the type of roles that are asked within the type of deliverables, that are within your job description, looking at the title, the experience, the deliveries, look at the market around, and also use your current salary to be able to gauge. I've always said, unless you're in a really bad situation, do not backtrack on your salary progressions. A good starting point is to say, what I have, 30% increase. That's a very standard position. So for what I have 30%, it's very standard. What you have 50% increase, you have to really be jumping the gun. What you have 100% instinct, let's say what you have, you are paid wrongly from the beginning. That's why you need to be able to then change so that you can quickly jump up to what you require. I'm going to run our last poll today, and it's just basically a happy sheet. I want to take this opportunity to really thank you very much for your time. I know we've taken 7 minutes of your day. We appreciate that. There is a progress that is ongoing. If there is a poll that is ongoing, if you would like to give us some response on this, we would be very, very grateful. We also just want to remind you that this material will be sent to you via email, and the recording of the same will be available on YouTube after 2 or 3 weeks. We will also send you a quick guide, an industry report, for you to be able to have it in your pocket to read it when you're doing different things and preparing for interviews differently. Once again, I would just like to thank you very much for attending. Thank you, Bernadette. Thank you, Nelly, for accepting to be our panelist on Conversations with Wendy. We're honored to have you, and the knowledge you have given us is invaluable. We thank our background team, that is Josephine, Sam, Shiko, Mwangi, for all the work that they put into this. I have been your host, Wandera Kuyu. I have been very, very excited to have you here. I'm reminding you to follow us on our socials. That's LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram at Conversations with Wendy. And if you have any questions whatsoever, you can just send it to info@conversationswithwendy. Thank you very much, and have a very lovely weekend ahead and a very bright week to come.